Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into electric vehicle range.
Yeah, based on the materials you shared, we're looking at what range actually means.
Exactly. You asked for a clearer picture of EV range, battery capacity, all that stuff. So our mission is really just to, demystify it a bit.
That's the plan. Break down how far these EVs can really go on one charge.
Okay, so let's start right there. EV range. What is it, fundamentally?
Simply put, it's just the distance the car can travel before the battery runs out.
Like miles per tank in a gas car.
Pretty much, yeah. Same concept.
And those numbers we see advertised, the official range figures,
Yeah.
how are they determined?
Right. Those usually come from standardized tests. Think EPA ratings in the US or WLTP elsewhere.
So controlled conditions, specific cycles.
Exactly. They give a benchmark, a way to compare different models, but it's not always what you'll get on the road.
Right. The real world is always different. So what are the big things that affect your actual range?
Well, quite a few things. Your driving style is probably number one.
Like flooring it versus smooth acceleration.
Precisely. Fast acceleration, hard braking that eats up energy. Smooth driving is much more efficient.
Okay. What else? Speed.
Oh, definitely speed. Higher speeds mean much more air resistant.
Like pushing more air out of the way.
Yeah, and that takes significantly more energy, especially above, say, 60, 65 miles per hour.
Got it. And terrain. Hills versus flat.
Hills demand more energy going up, obviously, though you might get some back going down with regen braking.
We'll come back to regen. What about just loading up the car? Does weight matter much?
It does, yeah. More weight requires more energy to move, so a fully loaded car will generally have slightly less range than an empty one. It's usually not a huge difference day to day, but it adds up.
Okay, let's shift to the battery itself. We hear kilowatt hours. Kilowatt hour. What is that?
So a kilowatt hour is basically a unit of energy. For an EV, it measures the battery's capacity. Think of it as the size of the fuel tank.
So bigger kilowatt hour means bigger tank.
Exactly. More kilowatt generally means the battery can store more energy, which usually translates to longer potential range.
Makes sense. So what's like a typical range for EVs you can buy now? Is there a common bracket?
It's a pretty wide range now, actually. Many mainstream EVs are landing somewhere between maybe 200 and 300 miles.
Okay.
But you've got plenty pushing well past 300, even over 400 miles for some premium models.
That's a solid distance.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned regenerative braking earlier. How does that play into city versus highway driving efficiency?
Right, regen braking. That's where the EV captures energy when you slow down, feeding it back into the battery.
Kind of like free energy.
Sort of, and you slow down a lot more in stop-and-go city driving, so you get more chances to use regen. That can make city driving surprisingly efficient in an EV.
More efficient than highway. That seems counterintuitive compared to gas cars.
It often is, yeah.
Mm.
On the highway, you're at a constant higher speed, less braking, more air resistance, so you don't benefit from regen as much.
Interesting. Okay, what about range anxiety? Is that still a thing?
It definitely was, and maybe still is for some folks. It's that fear, of running out of charge miles from anywhere.
Yeah, I can see that.
But honestly, with ranges improving so much and the charging networks getting bigger and more reliable, it's becoming less of a practical concern for, I'd say, most daily driving.
So better tech and more plugs are helping ease those fears.
For sure.
How about the weather? Does a really cold day or a super hot day mess with the range?
It can, yes. Extreme cold is the main one. Batteries just don't perform quite as well chemically when they're very cold, so you might see a temporary drop in range.
And heating the car in winter or AC in summer.
Yep, climate control uses energy directly from the main battery, so running the heat or AC will reduce your overall range compared to having them off.
Okay. And are these batteries good forever or do they degrade like a phone battery?
They do degrade over time, like pretty much all lithium-ion batteries. It's
Yeah.
a gradual process, losing a small percentage of capacity over many years and miles.
Is it usually a big drop?
Not typically, no. Manufacturers design them for longevity and offer long warranties, often 8 years or 100,000 miles, covering significant degradation. It's usually quite slow.
Good to know. So final practical bit. What can drivers actually do to squeeze the most miles out of a charge?
Well, the smooth driving, we talked about gentle acceleration, anticipating stops, that's key.
Right.
Keeping tires properly inflated reduces rolling resistance. That helps too.
Simple stuff.
And preconditioning is a good one. Heat or cool the car cabin while it's still plugged in. That way you use grid power, not battery power, to get it comfortable before you drive off.
Smart. Okay, let's quickly recap then. Range is distance on a charge, affected by driving style, speed, terrain, load, even weather.
Yep. And kilowatt battery size bigger usually means more range.
City driving can be efficient thanks to regen braking. Range anxiety is lessening with tech and infrastructure improvements.
And batteries degrade slowly over time, but you can maximize range with efficient driving and things like preconditioning.
Exactly. Okay, here's a thought to leave you with. We see battery tech improving constantly, charging getting faster and more widespread.
Right, the pace is incredible.
So how might our whole concept of vehicle range change in the next, say, 5 or 10 years? If charging becomes almost instant or ubiquitous, does range even matter in the same way? What new questions does that open up for you?